We're starting a new section today called Land of the Walking Dead. What is it? Well, I would call it consensus. You know, the idea of morality, Christian morality, of not killing, not committing adultery, not stealing, not lying, has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. The herd morality is consensus only. Consensus. That is their idea of morality, and they will kill for it. As long as they have the security of the collective behind them, they feel justified in doing anything. Hating you, killing you, firing you, ruining your reputation. That's the herd. It's not true morality. The herd morality is consensus only. But there are great thinkers all through history that wouldn't go along with it. They preferred their own authenticity to the comfort of the collective morality. But that collective morality will justify you killing somebody, ruining their reputation, firing them. That's all it's about. It's comfortable to somebody who can't think for himself. But you've got to. The great people in history parted from the consensus. They saw the truth. But they were burned at the stake. They were imprisoned. They were rejected. And most people can't stand that. It brings loneliness. It brings isolation to think the way you want to rather than accept the consensus. The fear of loneliness is so great, most people will go back into the herd and the herd will accept them. If you never question it again, it'll lock you in. When you escape the plantation, watch out, because you can't think freely again. But what this does is, the collective security of consensus dumbs you down, ages you fast, uglifies you, and makes you just dull. It's a very dull reality. Every era, every generation from the beginning of time had its own reality that you had to conform to, or you'd be rejected, because they can't stand it. It's frightening to them to think that all that they've invested into is a lie. And just your existence alone shows that. But it's a lonely life. What happens is the very people who persecute you for it will be the ones that make you a hero later, because then the consensus will change. The consensus changes cyclically all through history. It's a strange thing. They just want to be with the others. When the others love you, then they'll love you. There are people who will break off from the herd reality because they met you or they meet me. And they'll think, yeah, I'm an individual. I'm going to think this. I think that's all bull. And they'll break off. But then they can't stand the loneliness that comes with it because you're isolated. It's unbearable to them. So then they truckle back in. This has happened so many times. I've met people like that. They became individual. They started to shine. They had an aura. They were themselves. They found God. But then they couldn't stand the isolation. So they went back. Now I love the isolation. I revel in it. I adore it. I just guard it with jealousy. I don't want anybody interrupted it, but most people are not like that. They want the constant validation, the constant guffaw, good old boy routine. They want that. It's a shame, because when they go back in, they're even worse than they were in the beginning. True seekers of knowledge are true to themselves, even though it means rejection and loneliness. All through history, we know that to be the case. People that are memorable, the heroes, those were the lonely ones. But it didn't matter. The rejection didn't matter. They weren't going to go back into that for any reason. And I wouldn't either. And I hope you won't. Choosing authenticity over comfort is rare, because it means nobody understands you. You're in a room full of people and not one person understands you, and you know that everything that you say is misunderstood and misjudged, it's extremely difficult. The path of the hero is very hard because we are herd animals. We're social animals. We want to be together. Think of a wolf pack. The one who's different starves to death. He's rejected from the pack and he starves to death. Shame is the result in humans for not fitting. I realized that suddenly. My whole life I felt ashamed of myself. I didn't know why. I'd wake up feeling guilty. Nobody else felt like that, but why did I feel that way? I must be a terrible person. No, that was a psychological result of not fitting the herd. I felt ashamed of myself. Don't let it get you down. We're all sinners. Realize that shame is the direct result of not fitting the dumbed down herd. Part of the collective, the consensual herd, makes you feel good, doesn't it? Because then they can judge, which is a relief from their mediocrity. They're mediocre. They aren't thinkers. They aren't truth seekers. But if they can judge you, it's a relief. No, it keeps people low. Think of that. That consensus has nothing to do with morality, but they see it as morality. It is their only morality, is maintaining consensus. Nothing to do with murder, or theft, or adultery. Adultery is very common these days. It's not part of the scene. They don't care about that. But if you go against the consensus, that's the problem. And they have a right to murder you, judge you, cast you out of the clan, disown you, divorce you. I see a lot of men who love Trump, for example. Their wives divorced him because of it. Yes, it's true. Look it up. Only because they love Trump. Truth is not determined by the majority. Think of that. We think that it's true, that if the majority thinks it is true. No. One man is a majority. One man creates revolution in society where the whole gestalt changes. What they thought is dismissed and they take on the opposite view. It's cyclical all through history. There's not one line of thought except for the thinker. They are always the same. They are always seeking truth. But the herd is just thinking this and they're thinking that. Consensus. One man is a majority. The majority is usually wrong. They did absurd things. There were generations where they did atrocious things, atrocities everywhere. That was justified. Look at Hitler's Germany. The majority is wrong. The individual is right. Do you know that being alone is a sign you're right, not wrong? And yet, you take on the herd's reality about you, that you're a loner, that you're antisocial, that you're obviously wrong, because you're not going along with the consensus, which can be absurd. They believe the most absurd things in history and now. But just because the others think it, that's the way the human brain connects to that. It must be true. When everyone thinks alike, it's a sign that no one is really thinking. Yeah. And there's some countries that you gotta think alike. You gotta be exactly alike. It's a sign that nobody is using their brain at all. The majority is scary, justifying horrible things just because it has bulk on its side, the masses. And they just, hooray, they're doing it for acclaim. The worst are the kids. That's immature thinking. If everybody else thinks it, that's the truth. And they will do horrible things. That's the land of the walking dead. They're dead, they're low, they're dumbed down. but they're the majority. They're the morality. They're the consensus. The price of freedom is loneliness, but the reward is authenticity. And that's what I want, and that's what you should want too. Because insofar as you come to the true self, you come to God. And insofar as you come to God, you've come to the true self that He designed. Now, collective consensus, the comfort of it, is dirty disorder. It's not clean order. It's dirty disorder. But it seems like clean order because everybody else thinks it. That's the paradox of this. Hell is dirty disorder. Heaven is clean order. But they can justify it. The human mind is just amazing, everything it can justify. If the others think it. It's absurd. And you say, how could this happen in this generation or that generation, Nazi Germany, or how could this possibly happen? How could people think like this? Well, it's because of how the brain works. That collective consensus is the most important. Now, this ought to make you question human thinking. It ought to make you question how you have thought in the past. It's called mundanity, our mundane world. We think in an ontologically sense, the ontology is how we know what we know. Ontologically, our mundane world is reality. Some cultures do the craziest things, but that's their mundane reality. That's their collective consensus. It takes great courage to be yourself in a world that punishes authenticity. Can you do it? What happens to the lone wolf that is cut off from the herd and all of a sudden there's divorce and the family disowns you and your network drops you and you lose your grants and you're fired from your job and all the neighbors are gossiping about you? What happens? Well, they can either sink or swim. You can either sink in your swill over it and lay down and be weak, or you can stand up and be strong. Because great thinkers spoke back to the herd. They confronted people. They confronted groups in public. And they became great in history. That is the obstacle we have to overcome. Can you do this? Can you stand strong in your authenticity, which the world punishes? All minds have to have the security of the group thinking alike. What happens when group security transforms into tyranny? Forcing you. I have been in false churches that tried to force me to be like them. Just coming to my home without calling and just sitting down and ragging on me because I wouldn't conform to the group. What happens? Well, there you have the awful things that have happened in history. Millions killed because they wouldn't conform to some insane dogma. And we see it in America today, the insanity of things that people believe in. It's not easy being a lone wolf. But as long as you know what you're up against, it can help you. Perhaps to relocate or fence yourself in better. Or just with knowledge alone helped me a lot to deal with it. Knowing what it was. Because before then I felt filled with guilt and shame. There must be something wrong with me. It's called the Negretto stage in making gold. No one's as bad as me because they're part of the majority and I have no friends. So I must be a horrible person. But once you know what's going on, that gives you insight. Now you can transcend all this and be happy nevertheless. It's just a matter of getting protection. Either bodyguards or fencing yourself in or relocating or just being peaceful and not fighting back, forgiving, but detaching. Detach with love. Perhaps you have to release with hate first. I don't know. But whatever you do, release and detach. what differentiates us. Inner strength doesn't need external validation. You know, I'm happy when people leave nice comments for my videos and, you know, are really nice and a lot of flattery. Sure, everybody likes that. But it doesn't bother me when I don't get it, because I'm strong now as a result of overcoming these obstacles. I don't need external validation. I know it's good. I've done what God told me to do. He directs my steps. To hell with the rest of them. But that took years to get to that point. Many of you were cute babies, but then you lost that in consensus. You may have grown up just a freak because you lost yourself in the consensus, but you sure were a cute baby. You started out good. I'd like to talk about a tweak of the diet: fruit, greens, nuts, and seeds. I wrote a book called Champion Guides in 2001. It was an alternative to what I saw as fruitarianism. Fruit and cheese. Fruit, greens, nuts, and seeds, and cheese, occasionally cheese. For those who are allergic to nuts, and you need the fat, and you don't want to eat meat, cheese is an alternative. It's very French, and you will lose weight on it. Fruit and cheese. As an alternative, when you feel you're going crazy, you want a pizza or something, you dip into that. It's a safety net, okay? Now, cleaning out the body doesn't always mean losing weight, because you may be gaining in bone and muscle, and it's heavier. That happened to me. I had this thing in my mind. I wanted a certain number on the scale. You know, always trying to attain that weight. And finally I saw, I'm slender. What's the problem? I'm much stronger than I ever been. My bones are stronger. I'm much happier. What's this compulsion about seeking a certain number on the scale? I weigh more because I have muscles now. I was too skinny before. You know, it's called the set point of your weight. That is the weight you're supposed to be. No big thing. Give up the weight compulsion and just be healthy. You want a cheating day? I make salsa with tomatoes, little garlic, a lot of cilantro, and some hot peppers. And then I cook it on the stove with Parmesan cheese. Now, Parmesan cheese is the highest protein of all the cheeses. So there, if you want a little protein. It gives you a little change in your diet, something for your body to work on, a change in consciousness. You're not going off the wagon entirely, but it's just a sort of a cheat day, if you want to look at it that way. Some people stay on it forever. They want the low-carb diet that I advised in Champion Guides in 2001. Fruit and cheese being the main example. It's low-carb. On low-carb fruit days, I would advise, it's called lacto-fruitarianism, by the way, lacto, the dairy. I'd advise like maybe a strawberry smoothie in the morning. It's low-carb, whereas a mango smoothie is high-carb. Stick to that. Put almond butter and tahini in it, both low-carb. Delicious, wonderful, nourishing smoothie. And then some nuts, but not cashews. They're too high in carb. Look everything up on the internet. And then for lunch, you have your tomato sauce, which I just told you how to make it, and Parmesan cheese melted in. Delicious. And nothing for dinner. I wrote a book called Just Skip Dinner. Never have dinner. Just fruit and a little cheese for lunch in the sauce. It's like a spaghetti sauce without starch. You don't have any starch on this day. No corn, peas, rice or beans, none of that. That's for the high carb day. This is a low carb day. And you'll find just a delicious reversal in your dieting, a delicious vacation. I recommend reversal dieting between high carb and low carb, and this is the way to do it. Pictures of how people looked in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. They were all thin. It's a conspiracy to keep us fat now. We're all pasty, bloated, stocky, mean, addicted, and then we have to rev ourselves up with more addictions. Coffee, caffeine, alcohol, pot, drugs of all kinds. No. Look at pictures before, how thin people were. They looked sleek, and they were tall and thin. None of this bloat that we see today. Everybody is pasty and bloated, and they look dirty, like you want to give them a brush to scrub, because that stuff is coming out of every pore. And then, showing consensus, everybody's filled with tattoos. The Bible says only the heathen do that. Even women, their arms are filled with tattoos. It's almost like it's all compensating for bad food. I long for the days, I guess will never come back, when people were sleek, thin, with beautiful skin. No tattoos. The price of collective comfort is very high. You lose yourself and you get old. Premature aging. Look at how people prematurely age. They should live to be 100 at least. And high-powered in their work until they're 100. It's because of collective security. Don't do it. Fruit, greens, nuts, and seeds, and occasional cheese. There you have your safety net. A happy life. We're starting a new section today called Land of the Walking Dead. Their idea of morality, let's call it collective morality, the herd, is nothing about Christian morality, about not murdering, not stealing, not committing adultery, not lying. No. It has to do about consensus. If there's a consensus or majority opinion, they see that as morality. And that other morality, forget it. That's okay. Consensus. Well, there are great thinkers that don't go along with the consensus. It's comfortable to go along with the herd. They don't hurt you. They only hurt the outsider who thinks differently. It's comfortable, but it will make you age faster, it'll make you ugly, and it'll keep your intelligence low. You're part of the herd. They're not hurting you. They give you the power to hurt the outsider without guilt or punishment. And you can feel like that you're upholding their morality. That's their sense of morality. Consensus, what the majority thinks. But it will shorten your life and make it dull and make you dull.